Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Workday Morning Show. I'm your host, Tony Gilfillan, the Workday Developer Advocate, here to help you through all of your development needs. Before I jump into what I wanted to do today, I wanted to tout a cool opportunity on my particular team. So if you want to join me and my other fellow developer advocates and you are in the EU or know someone that would be interested in this, we have a job opening for a senior developer advocate, again, in the EU area. So it is a fun, amazing team. Would love to have some more fun folks join us here. And I will post this job rec in the description of the video. So if you're interested or know someone interested, please have them come our way. Alrighty, so yesterday I had some issues with cursor not connecting, and I inevitably jumped into doing some additional extensions to my cursor while I was kind of fiddling with the existing agent. So I have now 3 different agents plugged into my cursor. I have Claude code in my terminal. I have the cursor agent itself, which is also tied to several different models. So the models that we are able to pick from the cursor subscription is the Composer 1.5, which is the one that Cursor gives you, which is actually has recently been upgraded and is pretty darn good. You have your Claude, Sonnet, and Opus, and then your ChatGPT Codex in 5.2. Those are all great models. And then I also installed yesterday and got working the Gemini Code Assist, which is actually pretty good. I was fiddling with this yesterday on the stream, and it did attempt to fix the ticketing piece. But I think the main problem is, after doing a little bit of digging, is that the ticketing piece is expecting to be tied to my Workday data, which was not originally in the plan, but I actually don't hate that approach. So if we basically use the ticketing piece of things to also tie into Workday data, we'll be able to better analyze and better essentially report on the open tickets from a Workday side of things. So let's take a look and see what we can do to fix the ticketing side of things while using Workday, the Workday data model, to essentially accomplish handling our ticketing process in Workday Extend. So we're going to go ahead and log in as our hacker. And again, our chat works. We got that working a couple days ago. We're just going to make sure that this is still broken. Again, Gemini took a stab at fixing this, so we'll see if they were actually able to get it working. I don't think it did. Yeah, failed to create ticket. So I'm pretty sure there's still a problem with the connection between the ticketing application and saving these tickets. So it's not going into the database like the chat is, but that's okay, because now we can pivot to using Workday and a Workday Extend business object to hit that ticket application. So let's go ahead and go to our dev site. We're going to create a separate application for our ticketing. Email. So at the end of the day, what this application really is going to be is 3 separate applications. It's going to be a Workday application for registering hackers and creating teams, and then that's going to integrate into our application for the chat and the ticketing, being essentially the source of truth for our user data, And then we're also going to have a third application that's also going to live in our Workday tenant that is going to handle our ticketing. So we'll be able to report on the tickets that happen in our chat application. So now we can go ahead and we'll create an extend app. Let's just start from scratch because we're going to essentially just use this kind of as a database. So effectively, this app is going to act as my backend for the ticketing piece of this hackathon app that I'm working on. So essentially, I'm going to create a business object and the security around that business object, and then some orchestrations to be able to push and pull data out of that business object from my third-party application. And then last will be the reporting that I can do on that ticketing business object. So now that we have a little ticket application here, we can create a business object. We'll just call this ticket. And then for our ticket, let's match it up to the fields that we're creating. So we need a description, location table number, and a priority. Then we'll also need an assignee. And we'll also need a security domain. So let's create the security domain first. Ticket security. Scale case here. We'll use this for both page and orchestration, so we can handle the reporting side of things and the orchestration piece with the same security profile. And that, we go back to creating our business object. Go. Here it is. Ticket domain. Tickets is the collection. Tickets submitted by hackers. Fields. I'll add in some fields here. Description. Text. Add another field for priority. Text as well. And location. I should name that table number because my brain goes to locations in Workday, and this is not like a physical city or anything like that. We can actually change this to an integer then if it's just a table number. And then last is going to be the assignee. Actually, not last. I also need the reporter. Basically, the user that reports these tickets. I guess I could tie it to an instance field, which would be our hacker. So in our hackathon registration app, we have a business object that is essentially tied to a worker called a hacker, and that has some additional fields to it that we use for tracking the project and what team they're assigned to. But for the time being, we can adjust that later when we actually want to tie these two apps together. Right now, we'll just have text because this is not in the same tenant in which I have that registration app tied to. Now, let's save and deploy this. essentially all I need right now is a ticket object with a way to push and pull data out of the business object that cursor can then use to tie to my APIs on my Hackathon app side. If I look at my documentation here, I can see, it records in the README. Yeah, so here's all the endpoints that the LLM has essentially created for all of these processes within the app. And underneath tickets, essentially, this is going to be backed by the Workday business object APIs. So I need to basically give Cursor the ability to tie these to my orchestrations. In the meantime, while I'm working on the orchestration side of things, let's see if Cursor can alternatively add these tickets to a database, and then we'll persist them across both. Ticketing functionality. Word in local base. And eventually these tickets will be in a Workday business object. Being this has to be I want to get Cursor working on just fixing the ticketing application to push those into a local database that I can make sure it's actually fixing what it broke before, because when it created the chat application part of this, it broke two different pieces. It broke the login, and then it broke the ticketing part. Not 100% sure why it did, but it effectively tried to build out the ticketing piece without having the back-end piping to tie into the Workday side of things. So now it doesn't go anywhere, and it just fails when the tickets try to do anything. So now I want to fix the ticketing application while I build the Workday side of the tickets. So now it's planning that out. I will... Now I can work on two different things at once using the wonderful world of AI agents. Not in the Let me switch. First, I'm going to download my app here because I need to now move it to the right organization. You guys are getting a sneak peek into the orgs that will be used for DevCon 2026, which registration does start in about 2 weeks. So March 1st, registration opens for DevCon, so be prepared for that one. Download this, delete it. Downloading it. Right, so to-dos here, ticket service queue. I'm just going to send that on its way to fix the ticketing system locally. And then I will create my test organization. Like a man versus machine right now. How fast can Cursor finish versus I can? Ticket. Business. Security domain. Order, assignee, description, status, priority, right? Table number. Save and deploy this so then I can reference it in an orchestration. I'm basically just pushing out my business object and security domain so I have an app on my tenant, and then I can create an orchestration that's actually able to hit those REST APIs. Because if you try to access your business objects before you push to a tenant, those APIs don't exist yet because it has to actually deploy to your tenant before those REST APIs are created for your applications. Tenant, I can go ahead and manage tenant. My security domain, I'll have to create the security policy and who it ties to. So then my user is actually able to access the API, and then I need to grab the REST URL. So now that it's pushed, it's deployed, it's here in my tenant, I actually have a REST URL that I can hit to be able to access these tickets. But I also need to do the security domain, so there is a user that can actually hit these APIs. And I'm just going to add Logan as my user that is going to have access to these. Magic Mouse died this morning. It's charging right now, so I'm using the trackpad. A little bit slower than I usually am. All right, now I have security domain. I do need to activate that. Pending security changes. Looks like Cursor beat me to the punch. See if it was able to actually get a working solution in place. not the finished solution because I do want to tie it to these business objects, and it has no context in these APIs, so there's no way it was able to actually tie to anything. All right, let's have a look at ticketing app. Oh no. Just break server. Why did it switch to Opus? That's gonna waste a lot of tokens. I'm switching back to auto there. Again, when you guys are using cursor, be cautious of switching out of auto because say you are just rocking the Opus high, that's going to eat up a ton of tokens because look, I just burned through 123 tokens with just that one request. Opus 4.6 is a very token hungry model. It's smart, no doubt about it. It can do wonderful things very quickly, but good gravy does it eat a lot of usage. I'll let that investigate what the heck is going on there. And we can start working on the orchestration side of things. Now we have our security domain set up. We have our REST API. Now we can hit our REST API with an orchestration. We could technically hit it directly, but there would be no way. Well, there is a way. I don't want to hard code essentially my API keys into my app. I want that to live in all that authentication. I want to live in Workday. This is going to be create tickets. And then I'll have additional authentication for actually hitting the orchestration pieces themselves. And then within the orchestrations, I'll have the token authentication for the REST API to hit the tickets. So let's just start with hitting the Workday API. Get that from my app manager. Not view app, I want to configure my app. This is my ticket URL. And then do the default Workday credential. It's going to be a post. Back to tenant. I have Gemini just fire me up a quick JSON for this because I don't want to build it myself. Ugh, that was ugly. even realize what I did here, but we'll see what it does. How smart are you, Gemini? Here's what's wrong, and here's what changed. The dictionary that got changed to API, the fix, we did both. Okay. So, buddy. See if restart and everything fixes whatever this back end mix up is going on, because it's not able to actually tell 500 code. That's just internal server. So something is just busted locally. This is where these LLMs get wacky, is when it hallucinates and starts touching code that has nothing to do with the feature that you actually told it to mess with. All right, did it? Yeah, it did. Thanks. All right, body not exist template, and I'll separate this out into its own component at one point or another, but right now I just want to make sure it works. At hackathon.com, we are expert at hackathon.com. Default just we can actually debug this without actually even pushing it out to our tenant. So the question I was going to pose to myself today was essentially, can Cursor fix this API problem in 30 minutes? And granted, I didn't start getting this rolling until about 10 minutes in, but 20 minutes of itself kind of spinning on this problem, it has created more problems than it has solved. So let's see, after 20 minutes, did it fix its problem? Or at definitely taking a step backwards in its development process today. Tail these logs. That doesn't work, buddy. Should be running in that directory. This is the Hackathon app directory, so everything should be running locally. All right, connected. Let's test our API. Aha. So we created an API and successfully pushed tickets in. So now we have a push request that we're going to deploy this, and then we'll let, when when Cursor's able to solve its problems that it's presented for itself, we can essentially give it these APIs to, maintain the tickets for us. So we want ticket data to live in Workday, but we're going to let our application handle our ticket data. I want it to live in basically a cache on the application side for performance reasons, and then it will persist that data into the Workday business object for our ticketing, and then we'll be able to report on those ticketing business objects. Right, yeah, that's what I did, buddy. No such file or directory. Yeah, because there's no back-end log or front-end log. Where does it think these logs exist? It created all this. Hallucinating on AppRoot front-end log, right? There is no... Where does it think it's grabbing these logs from? I don't know what the heck it's doing right now. Now it's checking whether the log files exist in the git ignore, which is just the file that makes files not get pushed to git when you commit. There's no... Here, I can search for this log. Yeah, those don't exist. Did it not run the start local shell for itself? I thought that's what started the darn thing to begin with. Maybe this is why the ticketing application is not working either, because this Postgres database isn't running locally. It was supposed to create a Docker container that contained all this stuff together. So, all right. I do have homebrew on here. Let's see if this just... Okay, so now we have a new problem for ourselves to work on tomorrow. Essentially, it broke the Postgres database that was saving the tickets initially. So we need to basically lump that into the server start when this starts up locally, and eventually when it starts up on whatever hosted platform it is. To start up the database, it also needs to create these logs that it claims exist. So we're able to tell whether or not, different events are happening, aka logging in and not getting 500 errors. And then last is going to be actually fixing the ticketing problem to see if, once this Postgres database exists, are these tickets being saved? And then finally, we'll be able to let Cursor tie to my new ticketing application that is able to persist these tickets in a Workday extend business object. So that's what we'll be doing tomorrow. We're going to be tying this all together and seeing if AI is able to help us by fixing itself and integrating into a Workday orchestration. Thank you guys for joining me, and we will see you all tomorrow.